Emerging Leaders Foundation Africa. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for
quite
having me.
Mouthful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So first of all, just let's have the viewers understand what ELF Africa is all about.
ELF Africa stands for Emerging Leaders Foundation Africa, which is a youth serving organization here in Kenya, but also working with different organizations in the African region. And we exist to empower, support, and accompany young men, young women in different processes at all levels of society. So we want to make sure that young people are engaging in a dignified way, more impactful in governance processes, the economy, and public affairs. And so we do that through leadership development and mentorship of young people.
Which is very important. But of course, for the past, let's say, 3 years, youth unemployment has been almost like a buzzword right now, because everyone has been talking about it. Politicians have been using it to leverage themselves. And I'm just wondering, maybe it might be lost on our viewers on why this is a key issue. Could you paint us a picture of what the problem is and why you come in?
First of all, I think youth unemployment is an important thing to talk about, because if we want to develop as a country, if we want to move forward at all levels, then we have to definitely look at the most important demographic of our population. Because over 1 million young people are churned out of universities and colleges, and even others who drop out of school, but they all join this labor pool, people looking for employment. And so we have to then ask ourselves, how are we dealing with this key demographic and making sure that they all have jobs? Because if you do not have jobs, then you're most likely idle and you're not engaging in the most meaningful ways, right? And so that's why it's very, very important. But because young people are not homogeneous and they have different needs, they're coming from different backgrounds, it then calls for more strategy on how best to engage these young people to not only find jobs, but also to be very, very active citizens. And that's one of the key areas that ELF Africa focuses on.
So let's talk about some of the situations that young people find themselves into, because we don't have a lack of expertise or degrees or courses to take. Many of these young people are well educated but still unemployed. So there's that bridging of the gap where they find themselves in a pool of unemployed people. What kind of guidance do they need, and how do you step in?
I think young people need quite a number of areas to help them, first of all, develop themselves, and so beginning to understand who they are and the strengths and the potentials that they hold as young people. And so at Emerging Leaders Foundation, what we do is to first help young people get to understand who they are. What's your story? What's your journey? What's your background? And what really are you really interested in pursuing past your school, and even in addition to the work that you're doing? And so soon after we train the young people, we then link them up with mentors who can then walk the journey with them. And because mentorship is very, very important for us, that the hand-holding of young people to be able to get to see what is life exactly about, and just helping them to understand what lies ahead, what they can do with themselves and their communities, in giving back to their communities to be able to, make the communities better, develop better, and also link the different existing challenges to the possible solutions. And so mentorship is one of the ways that young people can grow themselves, but they can also be handheld by the people who've gone before them to be able to realize what exactly they can do more with themselves.
And there's the tendency of having this ideology or ideas that someone is going to come and give me a job, but then you're talking about seeing the challenges in your environment and finding solutions, and in that process getting yourself employed or gainfully employed. Speak to us about that. Does it talk, are we now talking about entrepreneurship? How could you encapsulate this process?
So it's important to remember that young people have different interests. So it could be entrepreneurship, it could be sports, it could be education, it could even be community development. And so one of the most important thing to remember is, let's reach out to the young people and get to understand, first of all, what are they very, very interested in, and making sure that young people also understand that some of the courses and careers that are very, very much praised and known are not necessarily what they must always focus on. And so that removes the whole narrative that if you do not pass very well in school, or if you do not have the grades that we are told, you have to get A, B, C, there are other things that you can focus on,
For sure.
And so getting to understand that you can link your passion to your purpose and walk this journey of mentorship and get to serve in the best way possible. And so that is what we've been doing for a long time, and that's what we think young people should do.
Should be doing, And even from what you're saying, there's an element of service, but then service and leadership go hand in hand. Good leadership, at least.
Yes, absolutely.
Speak to us about your efforts to ensure that we're having good leadership, and are we also focusing on underserved communities, because that's where it's really, really bad?
Yeah. So our emphasis is on values-based leadership. And we believe that leadership is service, and so basing everything that we do and the development processes that we have on key values such as integrity, honesty, accountability, and making sure that every process that these young people are engaged in are actually linking up to these processes.
So you're talking about integrity, and that just brings to mind the issue of corruption in Kenya and Africa in general. This is a big issue. Are you looking at the problems that countries in Africa are facing and targeting your approach based on that, or how does it work?
Yeah, we're very, very keen on skills development.
Cool.
So it's important to also remember the context in Africa, because Africa's share of the working age population is currently at 20%. But it's likely that the population could rise to up to more than double, so to 45% by 2100. And so making sure that we are tooling these young people to understand the key things, the relevant job opportunities that are coming up is very, very important. And that's why we focus on the holistic development of these young people, making sure that they also understand the key potentials that they hold.
Absolutely, in the community. And as we speak about service and dealing with some of the issues that we're having in Africa, I do realize that this is literally, I don't know if ALF is equipped to deal with the numbers, the data that is coming out in terms of youth unemployment is astronomical. I mean, how are you planning to tackle this? And I mean, when you look at the future, what are you hoping to see in terms of having put a dent into the problem?
Yeah, so there are different ways in which we can deal with youth unemployment, because as you say, the numbers are quite huge, it's quite huge. And so linking these young people with industry players and experts to be able to understand that this is what is required in the job market, but also making sure that potential employers, because young people are also potential employers, they can first create employment, but they can also be employed. And so it's a matter of making young people understand what is really required in the job market, but also helping the employers be able to see what are some of the needs of these young people and how can they best handhold these young people through mentorship.
So you're looking to have a ripple effect?
Yes, we're looking to have a ripple effect, but we are also looking to strengthen the skills that these young people hold to first believe in themselves, but also to bring the skills that they have to the job market and make sure that they are very, very much value-based leaders.
And of course, a few years back, we had TVET being rolled out as an option. Speak to us about that, the degrees and the master's degrees, but also the vocational-based training. Speak to us about that. Are you encouraging young people to focus on what to be skill-based as opposed to the intellectual kind of learning?
Yeah, our view is that every young person counts, and so priority should not only be on the young people who are in universities or colleges or even in the technical institutes at the village level. Focus should be on all young people, and so because the young people are not homogeneous, then we should focus on all levels of these young people. We have young people who are not in education, employment or training, we call that NEET. We have young people who've dropped out of school, and most importantly, we have a very key demographic amongst young people who are the young women, that's not a homogeneous group. We have young women who have dropped out of school because of teenage pregnancies. We have young women who are young professionals. We have young women who live in rural areas, others live in the urban areas, others live in the semi-informal and semi-urban areas. And so getting to understand that all these young people have different learning needs and linking them up to the different areas that they need their development in. And so this conversation about youth development engagement is also about talking to the industry players in education, for instance, to say, how best do we do this? And one of the ways is, yes, mentorship, but also linking them up to the learning needs that they really need. Yeah.
Are you trying to have an impact even at policy level?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things, like I mentioned, we do our best to make sure that young people are also influencing these processes very, very meaningfully. Yeah. And that's why we emphasize on active citizenship. That when you understand your civic responsibilities and duties as a citizen, then you can then best know how to influence policy. And we try our best to make sure that young people are organizing as much as possible, working with other young people, both at the county level, at the national level, to come together and make sure that they're influencing the policy areas and the policy issues that interest them as young people.
Okay, so before we conclude, I'd like to paint you a scenario, right? I'm a young girl, I've gone to school, Form 3, get pregnant, I have to drop out, but still I have potential, I have my dreams. Could you give me or paint me a picture of how ELF could be helping such a girl, or even how such a person can get the kind of help that you're giving, the mentorship, the encouragement, the kind of push that you need so that you can target your desires, your talents towards being a future leader?
Yeah, actually, school mentorship is at the center. It's at the core of what we do. We do go to schools, we visit these learners, and we talk about the key things that are affecting them. And so depending on the age, we have teenage students, we have students who are above the age of 18. We have children who are also students. So it really depends on what exactly their key interest areas are. But the most basic and the core of our work is to remind this young person that it's important to know themselves, to know what exactly are you interested in, what are your strengths, how can you best grow as a learner, but also there is peer-to-peer mentorship, what can you learn from each other, and then overall linking them up to the mentors that they have.
Okay. What am I failing to say? Perhaps to ask. Perhaps you have something to add.
My addition would be to tell every young person that there is an opportunity out there for you. Just be very, very deliberate about what exactly you want. Be intentional on mentorship, and look up Imagine Leaders Foundation Africa. We have this whole pool of mentors that you can reach. Yes.
Yeah, that you can reach out and get the help that you need to push yourself, right? Okay. Thank you so much. That is Estelle Nderitu, ELF Africa. Thank you so much for joining us and shedding a picture, so you can see there are resources if you're young and you're looking for some kind of mentorship and guidance, and get the help you actually need.